Marvel just showed us the first look at Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom, and I'm about to read way too far into it for about 10 minutes. So as you know, Doctor Doom is going to be the villain in Avengers Doomsday and then Avengers Secret Wars. We have not seen him yet. Very briefly, he shows up at the very end of Fantastic Four, and we can kind of see a guy in a green cloak holding a mask, not one where we see the front of it, so not a particularly detailed version of the Doctor Doom mask, but we know, because Marvel has talked about it, and just like we can recognize it, that is Victor Von Doom, aka Doctor Doom, the nemesis of the Fantastic Four. Now, it is unclear if he is from the same universe as the Fantastic Four. We don't even know that at this point. But, we have seen this character before, and I just want to point that out. But today, it is apparently Disney Marketing Expo in Shanghai, and there were banners that featured certain characters from some of their big upcoming movies. You got Judy Hopps from Zootopia 2, Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story 5, Mickey Mouse from some Mickey Mouse thing, Mandalorian and Grogu from their new movie, Spider-Man, I'd assume from Brand New Day. I feel like we've seen this image before, although we know exactly what that costume looks like because we've seen it so much, and this might not be exactly that, but it doesn't matter. Maybe it's a placeholder. But then between those two, we saw the first image of Doctor Doom, the antagonist of Avengers Doomsday. Now, okay, with the Spider-Man image, I feel like when this came out, because this one's been out for a little bit, they used it at another one of these convention things. People saw it and went, that reminds me of a different image. I can't remember what it was, but they were able to find that Spider-Man image in promotion for something else. But it seems like Marvel is using a placeholder that looked a lot like what the eventual Spider-Man Brand New Day suit would look like. But it seemed like that was not originally made for Brand New Day. I have seen a lot of images of Doctor Doom, and I've also seen a lot of fan images of Doctor Doom and what people think this character might look like. I've never seen some of these details before. This seems new, and it seems so specific that I feel like this has to be what this character is going to look like in the movie. And like I said, I want to read way too far into a couple of details on the mask, and then talk about the weird hologram projection thing that they did, because I think that also tells you some things about the movie. Now, I'm not trying to spoil the movie or anything. For me, really what this is looking at it and kind of getting excited for this movie, because what I think the problem with Doomsday has been so far is we know Doctor Doom is in it. We know some of these Avengers are in it. We know the X-Men are in it because of the chair reveal. But besides that, there isn't a lot to get hyped about. But I think specific things like this mask or this little hologram show help you to get excited about the movie, because it gets your imagination going about, oh, what's this? Is this going to be that? And you start thinking about it in a way that maybe you hadn't before. That's what these usually do for me. And I mean, A, there's no way I'm going to spoil something for this movie. B, we'll talk about the hologram thingy. I don't think anything that's even kind of hinted at in that is not going to be in a trailer, in the first trailer. So I wouldn't worry about being spoiled. Unless you don't want to know anything about this movie, I feel like this is all stuff that will be very, very obvious going in. This would be like if we saw the Infinity Gauntlet for the first time in a promo picture for Avengers Infinity War. It's right, that's the Infinity Gauntlet. Thanos is wearing it. And that's not a great example because we'd have to see which Infinity Stones he has, but still, it's that kind of thing. But all right, let's talk about the Doctor Doom picture first. I've got my coffee, by the way. I've got my little Doctor Doom piggy bank, so I've got everything I need. All right, so one thing I really like that stands out immediately is the mix of this plated, scientific looking armor with the chainmail underneath. I think that's a great way to build the Doctor Doom look without having it all be this big plated robotic thing. This feels like a character, and I think Doctor Doom should feel like this, who has built this armor over time. What I mean is compared to Iron Man, because we're going to be doing that a lot, and don't get too ahead of ourselves because we'll get to that. But Iron Man prints an Iron Man suit basically made from scratch. I like the idea that maybe Doctor Doom has a Doctor Doom, piece of armor, and then invents a different weapon and then just puts that on the wrist. And that is why maybe certain parts of it look different than other parts. I think Doctor Doom as a character is supposed to feel like a lot of things, right? Victor Von Doom is a genius scientist and strategist, but also he's a master of the dark arts. So he should feel like a fusion of different worlds, and the fusion right now is between technology, science, and kind of old school Arthurian swords and sorcery magic. Also worth mentioning, I love the pose. He's doing that Doctor Doom folded arms looking down. That is a very iconic Doctor Doom pose. There's a couple of others that I'm sure we'll see in the marketing for this. One thing that stood out to me upon my second viewing of this, it's interesting that because he has these two, he traditionally does, I don't even know what you would call these, but pendants that hold his cloak or cape onto the rest of his getup. I think it's interesting here that they, A, are silver, sometimes they're gold, even though the rest of the armor is silver, but B, are different. They're not the same, but I'm wondering, like, maybe in the movie they'll serve a specific function. Like, one of them he'll tap on and it will activate some magic spell. One of them he'll tap on and it'll make a force field or something. Because, like, why would they look different from each other? I assume this is something that comes in a set for Doctor Doom. And, like, specifically the one over his left shoulder is more square, and the one over his right shoulder seems like it's like a star. So, I don't know. That is something. Love whatever's going on his abdomen. So this also seems like a part of his armor, but not the traditional because Doctor Doom usually has like a cloak or some sort of cape over it, but like just the metal parts, you know, it just looks like any kind of metal armor. Let's say something that wouldn't be that surprising to see on like an Iron Man suit or like Ultron or something like that. Just like a metal version of a six-pack or something flat. But either way, it's not usually this, it's not usually these rings, and they don't usually have this pattern. I will say the pattern, the square with the diamond inside of it, does kind of read to me, and maybe this is also has to do with the texture of this part of the costume, as kind of Doctor Strangey or like magical, maybe Camartagian. I don't even know if he has that. I would imagine it's Latverian, but I would say this bit feels less like traditional armor and more like it serves some sort of function. I mean, like almost like runes, but I wouldn't say it feels runish. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. And I like that it doesn't necessarily match the aesthetic of the gauntlets or the chainmail or the mask, which we'll talk about. Also has a big old belt with a little clip. Cool. But okay, so let's talk about the mask. Now, this has all the hallmarks of a traditional Doctor Doom mask. The eyebrows that make him look angry at you, I think those are classic. The very polygon-looking nose, the sort of sneering mouth with the metal bits in the middle. But I would say maybe there's two ways that this deviates from some of the different Doctor Doom masks. And the Doctor Doom mask has been redesigned every time a new artist takes a shot at a Doctor Doom comic. Like, not in a huge way, but like, it's not like it has to look exactly the same every time we see it. So there's a lot of different variations. Obviously, there's the other live action movies, like the one from the Corman version, the one from the Tim Story version, and then the Trank version. Like, they all have their own little look. I would say out of the three, this feels closer to the Corman version than anything else, just because that was, I would say, simple. But also, let's talk about the eyes. Expressive, also slanted down, which I think also helps to communicate the anger in the eyebrows. And they're not as slanted down as the eyebrows, but they are not flat. I would also say you could make the case that this eye design is kind of reminiscent of the Iron Man suit and its kind of rounded upper head and the way that the eyes build into that. It's a very specific look that the Iron Man suits in the MCU have had consistently, and this is not something I would say that is consistent in the comics. But like the design of the first Iron Man suit in Iron Man 1, that has not changed a ton between 2008 and Endgame. A lot of other aspects of the suit have changed, but the shape of the front of the mask stayed relatively the same. Other thing that's interesting about this Doctor Doom mask that really caught my eye, like this was the first thing I saw, I imagine this would be the first thing a lot of people saw, very high cheekbones. Not necessarily always something that's present in the Doctor Doom masks. High, very protruded cheekbones, I think it looks great. But then I would say there's this line that's formed with the cheekbones, because he's got the cheekbones. They have an arc that goes down towards the chin, comes back up, meets the mouth, goes over, and that creates this mini shape within the mask. And if you look at all the other ones from the comics and stuff, not every Doctor Doom mask does this, specifically this curved arc down. And I think that's interesting because that's another feature of a traditional Iron Man suit. The Iron Man like front plate of the mask always does that. It always has that curve that takes you from the cheekbone, that is a kind of pointed cheekbone, down to underneath the mouth where the mask meets like the chin. Like, remember, we're reading too far into this, but like the shape of the traditional Iron Man mask plate thing is present in this Doctor Doom. Also, let's start talking about the laser light show or whatever the hell this is. I don't know what it is. I don't know where you would see this. They seem to have invented a cool hologram, so that's cool. For this, it's like 3 minutes. You could hear the Avengers, traditionally like the Avengers theme. It didn't seem like a new one for Doomsday, and I feel like there will probably be a really cool Doctor Doom theme that also plays throughout the movie. But for now, man, they probably just haven't finished it, or they don't want to reveal it because this isn't that exciting of a thing. Like this event, you could save it for Comic-Con in a week. That would be kind of cool. And I feel like we knew the Fantastic Four theme pretty far in advance. of the Fantastic Four movie. That was one of the first things that broke out. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we heard the Doom suite or whatever it is. But okay, so let's talk about the Doctor Doom laser show, whatever this is. So first thing that happens, Doom hand comes through. Very polygony. I was kind of expecting that this would be the aesthetic, like we wouldn't get very many details. As the little show goes further, you see a lot more detail, and you're like, wow, this is really impressive, whatever the hell this is. But I think first thing it's interesting, when we see the Doctor Doom mask, before their details are like filled in, first thing we see is the eyes, the two glowing green eyes, but they follow the same line over like the forehead that feels like how an Iron Man mask is usually designed. And like that bit specifically, before you see the rest of the details of the mask, starting with that looked very intentional. I'm reading way too far into this. And then we see the full mask, interestingly, not the same as the mask in the other picture, which would lead me to believe they kind of started making this with very basic Doctor Doom like dimensions. And like, so I think the Doctor Doom is going to look more like the one on that poster than this. Because yeah, this looks like a very basic kind of Doctor Doom mask construction. Again, reading way too far into this. One thing that is interesting, that I don't think is reading too far into it, like I said, those two clasps or pendants or whatever you call them over the like pecs in the image we see in this laser show, they are also different. Now I believe it's flipped now, and maybe the person was watching this from behind, but now the star-shaped one is on his left side, the square one is on his right side. But like, this is very clear, and now I'm like really curious about why they chose to put these details in there. He's doing some magic here. We got him in that cross-legged sorcerer pose like Doctor Strange in Infinity War. Cool. I'd like to see that Doom is doing magic here. That would make him the first Doom. I don't know if the Corman one did, probably not, that like actively does magic, and that is a big part of Doctor Doom's deal. Why he is such a problem is because he can do both. Then we get a really good look of Doctor Doom sitting in a throne. Seems like it's either just a traditional Doctor Doom throne or like a seat in some sort of spaceship or something like that he's using to potentially travel the multiverse. I love that Doctor Doom traditionally sits in a chair. It's cool. Like I said in one of my videos, phase 5 might have been the chair phase. Another detail that's interesting, at 1 minute and 15 seconds in specifically, we pause, and there's this like flash of an image of Doctor Doom holding something in the air. It looks like it's like he's conquest, like he's got it. Also, like the image of Doctor Doom, which has been mostly green, turns kind of a reddish color. When I saw this the first time, kind of thought they were going for like Magneto. That's probably not what this is. But now I'm like, what is he holding? It kind of has like a humanoid shape to it. It looks like Baby Joey over here. Also, this is me from later in the day. I'm about to record my Peacemaker recap video. Looking at it again, it seems like what that's going for is Doctor Doom pulling Thanos' skull out like in that classic image from the Secret War comic. That would be cool if he does that. And, you know, that could be something that he's going to do, or something that they were just like, it'd be cool. Like, that's a cool image, so we should put that in the thing. Again, a lot of Doctor Doom in this throne. I love that look. Then Doctor Doom flies up, and we see some sort of like polygon pattern shattering. Now, I would say this could look like two things. One, it kind of looks like the mirror dimension that Doctor Strange used to throw people into. Other thing it looks like is the beginning of What If, and then when we see the Watcher's dimension, where he's like looking at his little wall, kind of has that thing going on, like that kind of stained glass kind of glued together images where you're looking at one little shard and it's a different part of the multiverse. Now we'll see something exactly like that in a second, but Doctor Doom explodes that and then sucks it all up, so that's probably supposed to be him destroying the multiverse and like taking it, and maybe that's like the end of the movie. Then just him doing that, cut to black, and then Doctor Doom will return in Avengers Secret Wars or something like that. Like, that could be the end of the movie. Love this radiating outline that's coming off Doctor Doom. Kind of a little bit reminiscent of like the Ant-Man shrinking, but not really. Again, I'm reading way too far into this. All right, then Doctor Doom stands in front of some big door. I got two guesses of what this is, if this is anything. Again, reading way too far into it. First guess, and one I don't think it is. This could be Necropolis, which is a part of Wakanda. We haven't really seen yet, but it's where the Illuminati meets, and maybe this could be Doctor Doom, like, you know, attempting to breach the stronghold wherever the heroes are. I don't think that's what it is. And then we've got the other one that I kind of like more. And this could be a million things. And this could be nothing. This could just be put him in front of a cool looking door thing, because that'll look cool in the little hologram. But like, let's say it is something. In Avengers Time Runs Out, the comic that I think a lot of this will be based on, which is the idea that there are incursions and all the different Avengers are trying to figure out how to stop them. And at the same time, Doctor Strange is investigating this god called Rabum Alal. This is a character we've never heard of before. Everybody's like, oh, this guy's really important, Doctor Strange. Like, I gotta get to the bottom of this, because he seems like he can help, or at least like figuring out what his deal is will give us more information about like what's causing these incursions. And I feel like the Black Swan, who's kind of like the Silver Surfer of this story, if I remember correctly, starts talking a lot about Rabum Alal. Doctor Strange eventually finds Rabum Alal at a place called the Library of Worlds. I don't know what it is. It turns out that like when you go through it, it's a bunch of other dimensions and stuff, and it's very trippy and MC Escher, you know, the mind of the Pharaoh in the Yu-Gi-Oh show kind of thing. And I'd say maybe that's what this is going for. Maybe this is Doctor Doom discovering the Library of Worlds, some sort of like nexus of reality. We've seen other versions of that, like nexuses of reality before. I don't think any of them look like this. When Doctor Strange goes to get the Book of the Vishanti, we don't see this shape. We haven't really seen this in Loki. We haven't really seen this in What If. That's why like it feels like a new thing. It feels like he's going to a big place, like some sort of temple. And based on like reading these comics and assuming this is coming from that, then probably Library of Worlds. And it makes sense because Stephen Strange obviously will be a big part of this movie, even though he hasn't been announced yet. And I could see that being a through line here, is Stephen Strange is following Doctor Doom through, you know, the places he went to gain control of the multiverse or something. And again, reading way too far into it, but that's what my guess is for this. Then Doctor Doom seems to go in this place. Also, it's kind of cool when we see the back of Doctor Doom just standing in front of this rotating pillar, whatever. That kind of looks like Darth Vader. I believe Doctor Doom has been like cited as one of the influences behind Darth Vader. So that's cool. But then we get to this one part that I think is really interesting. Hands come out, Doctor Doom's gloved hands, gauntleted hands, whatever. And then some magic-y dust turns into a ring. Now we have a couple of rings in the MCU. Specifically, in my What Was Phase 4 About video, I made the case that it was the wristlet phase because of how many of these there are. And then, so I'm going to describe what happens and I'll talk about what I think this is. And this feels very intentional. Ring shrinks in, explodes out, then we see some sort of spell. I'm assuming this is Doctor Doom Dark Magic. In the middle of that, it rotates around like a little gyroscope, and then we open up the multiverse and we see the shards of the different, and these icons are very specific. It's the Avengers logo, a Black Panther, which makes sense. Obviously, we're going to have Black Panther characters in this, but like, I was wondering, how is Namor going to fit into this story? Like, why is he going to be involved? And maybe it is just because the Black Panther team is this one team that calls him, and then he goes and helps. Or maybe we're going to a different universe, getting another Black Panther. I don't know. Then we see the Fantastic Four universe, and then we see the X-Men universe. Very cool. Then that's the end of the video. But okay. Wristlets. The obvious one that I think a lot of people are seeing here is the 10 rings, which I think makes a lot of sense because A, those are pretty important. That's a movie a lot of people have seen, people like. Everybody kind of thought, back when Kang was the main character in these, that he was going to have to go get certain artifacts, and we got the sense at the end of Shang-Chi that the rings are sending out a signal, and they're very important and old and universal, and Kang would have to go get them, use them to make a time machine or engine or something. And we've seen when Shang-Chi uses the rings, he can kind of charge them up and they spin around a lot, kind of like the way this does it in the video, although not exactly the same thing. But I understand why that's reminiscent. Other thing that I think this kind of looks like, and I think this kind of looks like it a lot, even though like, this can't be what it is the Eternals Unimind band, the things that link all of the Eternals, let them use their powers together, which like maybe the Unimind bands focus energy, which is what it seems like they do, channel energy from different Eternals. So like maybe Doctor Doom would want that to, you know, focus some of his energy and use it to do something else. I don't know, but like I would say this aesthetic of rings spinning around and stuff looks the most to me like the Eternals movie. When Phastos is creating the bracelets that make the Unimind, but also when Cersei, and then earlier in the movie Ajax, they have that little golden ball thingy that lets them talk to Arishem. The aesthetic of that looks kind of similar to this. I doubt that a big part of Avengers Doomsday will be based on Eternal stuff, because that is one of the movies that I don't think they expect a lot of people to have seen. But just looking at it and going like, that kind of looks like Eternal stuff. Other things it looks like, especially after it explodes out, looks like Kang's time chair, or the time chair engine that Kang is after. He sends Scott into the multiple Scots dimension or whatever to get. Kind of looks like that. Even his city has those big rings. Kang is dead, so like maybe Doctor Doom needs to go to Chronopolis. I think that's where this is. And then get something from Kang, get the time chair, because that'd be helpful for him to like go through the multiverse. So we've got Shang-Chi, Eternals, Quantumania. Other thing this reminds me of is the spell Doctor Strange does to Spider-Man to make everybody forget he's Spider-Man. And I think this is, I mean, none of this is important, but it's a little important. Look at how the rings are just like ring-shaped, and then they crunch in and then explode out into a bigger shape. That's kind of like how the spell fails in Spider-Man No Way Home and like gets uncontained. I could see that being a big part of this, because that's a way that Doctor Strange accesses the multiverse, or like accidentally accesses the multiverse. And then when Doctor Strange contains that spell and puts it in the little ball, again, it looks a little bit like the Eternals one, and puts that in the cube that they're using to like fight over, it's easy to forget, but like inside of the cube, there's that prism. Inside the prism, there is this little spinny spell thing that looks a little bit like this too. I might be forgetting something, but I think those are the main ones. I didn't see very many things that reminded me of Kamala, Miss Marvel, anything from the Marvels. I guess like you could say that the fractured universes is kind of like the fractured jump points, although I wouldn't say that's too much like that. And then when we go through the different realities and like see what Doctor Strange can see, that looks just like the beginning of What If. I do think What If and the What If aesthetic, even if that's not the most popular show, will be helpful in describing like a character going through the multiverse. Yeah, and that's pretty much the end of this. We have a really clean version of the X-Men logo we see from their dimension. Looks very nice, reminiscent of the silveriness of like that first generation of X-Men movies. But that's pretty much it. So, you know, I read way too far into it. I think I said it earlier in the video, it's be like 10 minutes. This is probably longer than that. But, you know, this is something interesting. I didn't think I'd see Doctor Doom for a little while, so it's cool that we saw him. And I think that, like, while this has that very tech demo-y, like, woo, things moving around and stuff, it also does call on some iconography and some images that don't feel just random. They feel somewhat intentional. I would imagine when they made this, whoever made it got some notes from Disney that was like, do this and then have it open up into this and then like a spell in the middle. So, you know, that's probably because that's important. And, you know, check back in a year whenever that movie comes out. If it gets delayed, who knows? I mean, they're showing it at this marketing expo thing. So like, that's probably because they expect it to come out when they expect it to come out, which is late next year. We'll probably see the trailer before that and get a sense for like what the movie's going to do. If we're right and that's what it's going to be about, that seems cool. I really like Time Runs Out, and I wish that was what this movie was called, especially so that we could use Doomsday as something else, some other subheading, and this was just Avengers Time Runs Out. But I get it, Doomsday's like more marketable. But overall, impressions on this banner and this video I read way too far into, good. And you know what else is good? Nebula. Because Nebula, as I'm sure you know by now, but if you have not heard of it before, is a subscription streaming service that me and a bunch of my YouTuber friends helped to create. Is a platform where we're free to not have to worry about the algorithm. I put all my videos, my Nando Movies videos and my Nando Cut videos up early. So if you want to see my next video now, which is about the Serpent Society in the MCU and why that's kind of a mess, you can watch that early, or you can wait until it comes onto YouTube in like, I don't know, like couple weeks, a month or whatever. Like, who wants to wait? It's fun to watch stuff now. This video was early on Nebula. You can watch it, you know, maybe a couple hours early, but still, all the videos early, ad free. You can download them on your phone, so that's nice. You don't have to worry about like taking up all the data. But then the most exciting thing right now is our production of Nebula originals. So these are like movies, short films, plays, documentaries. These are all created by Nebula. So these are our people. These all tend to be projects the creators are really passionate about, and we're able to put out like some really cool stuff. Patrick Willems has a short film coming out very soon that they just put a teaser out for called The Dinner Plan, which like it's not out yet, but like I've talked to Patrick about it. It's very fun. I don't want to just like tell you everything about it, but like it's cool, and it has people you definitely recognize, like John Hodgman's in it, Zach Cherry is in it, and then we have another show coming out called Subliminal, which Patrick directed an episode of, which I wrote an episode of. It is an anthology. You will see so much stuff for it in the future. When the trailer is out, I will be sharing it constantly. But if you want to, A, see all our videos early, get access to all of that, and B, help us creators make all this cool stuff that we could not make by ourselves, give Nebula a look, because it's great, and it is a steal at $60 a year or $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year of Nebula for $36. That's just $3 a month. It is an incredible deal. Go check it out now. Look out for Subliminal, my episode, all the other cool stuff we're working on. I think you're going to love it. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.